answer there. We'll also look at electricity prices and some other issues. But first, let's have a look at this NDIS. And I'm joined from Melbourne by the Shadow Minister for Disabilities, Mitch Fifield. Thanks for joining us, Mitch.
Good morning, Chris.
Look, we can talk about some of the funding questions and the detail of this issue in a moment. But firstly, would you not concede that on this major reform of National Disabilities Insurance Scheme, Prime Minister Julia Gillard has led from the front and is enjoying some success here?
Well, I think the win isn't really one for Julia Gillard or for members of Parliament. It's one for people with disabilities, carers and their families who have been absolutely ceaseless in mounting the case that people with disabilities deserve a better deal and that they've had to wait far too long for that. But look, I'm very happy to say that Julia Gillard is a big supporter of the NDIS, as is Tony Abbott. And look, I'll give credit to Bill Shorten, who, when he was the Parliamentary Secretary for Disabilities, certainly put a significant effort into putting disability on the public policy agenda. But look, I'm not here to make petty political points. It's a good thing that there has been some progress.
Why has it taken so long? Why have people with disabilities waited so long for this sort of attention? Of course, they are still waiting. This scheme is not implemented yet. But of course, you were part of the Howard government, which had more than a decade in power and healthy surpluses. Why wasn't something done about this initiative that everyone now says is obvious? Why wasn't it done sooner?
Well, I don't think any side of politics have particularly covered themselves in glory when it comes to disabilities, whether it be Liberal, Labor, state or federal. It's been a sorry saga for too long. The Howard government did do a few good things in disability policy. We announced and designed the Helping Children with Autism package, which the current government has continued. We provided a much better deal for carers through the introduction of a carers bonus when we're in office. So every side of politics has done some good, but I think people with disabilities, and particularly those who care for them, have just been too busy getting on with the job of surviving and living day by day, that they haven't had the time to lobby and advocate and make a loud noise, as have people who are pushing other causes. And the big change really over the last 3 or so years has been that people with disabilities, their carers and the organisations that support them have come together, spoken with one voice and made it clear to politicians of all persuasions that, quite frankly, they're mad as hell and they're not going to take it anymore, and that message has been heard.
Well, despite some questioning about how this is all going to be paid for, Julia Gillard does not look like getting a political fight over the scheme. Let's just have a look at what your leader, Tony Abbott, had to say about the NDIS earlier this week.
We might talk to the government about possible improvements, but rest assured that we support the scheme and we will support the legislation. I've said it before, ladies and gentlemen. I want to say it again to you. When it comes to the National Disability Insurance Scheme, I am Dr. Yes. I am Dr. Yes.
Mitch Fifield, obviously strong support there from Dr. Yes, Tony Abbott, but this will cost anything up to $10 billion a year. What can the opposition say about how it would pay for this?
Well, we've supported each significant milestone along the road to the NDIS. We supported the original work of the Productivity Commission. We supported the $1 billion that was in the last budget. We support the 5 launch sites. We support the legislation that's come into the Parliament. And we support the agreement that was reached between the Commonwealth and New South Wales last week. It's one that we will certainly honour. This is all about priorities. Governments tax plenty and they spend plenty. The problem isn't that government doesn't have enough money. The problem is that government has had the wrong priorities. And if you were designing from scratch what it is that should be the core business of government, one of the first things you'd start with would be proper support for people who face challenges for reasons beyond their control, like people with disabilities, and you would make provision for that.
But the Shadow Treasurer Shadow Treasurer Joe Hockey said this week that a coalition government could not deliver this NDIS in full until you had strong, healthy surpluses. Are you suggesting then that the delivery of this scheme is actually some years off and further off even than the government's promise of 2018 for full implementation?
No, certainly not. And Joe was merely making the point that I've made and that Tony Abbott has made, which is that in order to complete any significant reform, you need the budget to be in good condition. And what that means is sustained budget surpluses. Now, we aim to have the budget back in strong surplus well before the Productivity Commission's target date of a full NDIS by 2018-19. Our view is that budget surplus isn't the enemy of an NDIS, and an NDIS isn't the enemy of a budget surplus, that you can work towards both a budget surplus and an NDIS at the same time, and that's what we aim to do.
Well, of course, the Productivity Commission suggested a levy, a Medicare levy style arrangement to fund the NDIS. Will you look at that?
Well, Julia Gillard herself has ruled that out. We don't think that there's the need for a levy. As I said before, I don't think that the problem in Australia is that governments don't tax Australians enough. I think they tax Australians plenty. The problem is that governments haven't had the right priorities. And I just cite as an example, if you look at the annual debt interest bill on the Commonwealth Government's debt, that's approaching $7.5–8 billion. Now, that is the equivalent to what the ask is of the Commonwealth per annum for a full NDIS. So
yes, but you're not going to get rid of that debt anytime soon.
No, but the point is that if this government had made different choices, if they hadn't done the school halls and the roofing insulation, they'd have that full amount of money available today. And it means that governing is all about choices. You can make a choice to spend money well or badly. We're going to reprioritise and we're going to make sure that we find the money.
OK, well, there are lots of questions yet to be answered about the government scheme, let alone what the opposition would do if you formed a government. We still don't know exactly how the government will fund the scheme when it's implemented nationally in 2018. The trial schemes around the states are only just getting underway and being rolled out as we speak. Yet, this week in Canberra, Julia Gillard was able to stand up there with the Liberal Premier of the largest state and get him, Barry O'Farrell, signing on to the scheme long term. Let's have a look at that.
I do want to reinforce that this deal now sets the benchmark. It shows to the other states and territories that it can be done, and I am determined that it will be done. I want to build a truly national scheme, and other states and territories can now look at this example and work with us to build on this example, with this deal setting the benchmark.
This is an important day for 120,000 people with disabilities, their families, their carers across New South Wales. This gives them the guarantee that they've always deserved. This delivers to them the National Disability Insurance Scheme that has long been sought after.
Mitch Fifield, are you disappointed that Barry O'Farrell has signed up to the Julia Gillard scheme so early and with so much detail yet to be finalised?
No, I'm delighted that Barry O'Farrell was able to reach agreement with the Prime Minister. And as I was watching that press conference last week, I thought to myself, it didn't have to be this hard. We could have reached this conclusion much sooner. Barry O'Farrell essentially got everything that he asked for at the COAG meeting before last, when the Prime Minister sought to demonise the Conservative states. Barry O'Farrell and the Conservative premiers were wanting to follow the Productivity Commission funding blueprint, which was the Commonwealth put into the NDIS pot the money that they spend at the moment, the states put into the NDIS pot the money that they currently spend on disability, and the difference between that and a full NDIS is met by the Commonwealth. That's what Barry asked for at the COAG before last, and that's what Barry got in the last week.
Well, we'll see what unfolds with all of this. Everybody agreeing with the NDIS, Labor and Liberal, obviously, but still a lot of questions to be resolved about exactly how it's going to be rolled out and funded in the long term. I do want to just move on to another issue before we let you go, Mitch Fifield, and that is the story that's broken today about the Gallipoli centenary celebrations being planned for 2015. The government's previously announced it's going to limit attendance there. Australians, if they want to go, will have to apply, and there'll be a ballot to hand out tickets. And now we're seeing tour operators complain about that, saying they've already sold packages to go there, and people don't know whether they'll be able to attend the dawn service or not. Has the government overreacted here, Mitch Fifield, in trying to restrict access? Shouldn't Australians who want to celebrate what went on at Gallipoli 100 years ago be entitled to turn up and celebrate it?
Well, I've had the great privilege a few years back of attending the dawn service with Peter Costello when he was the Australian government representative there, and it was a pretty crowded and pretty packed occasion at that time, and I can imagine that the desire of Australians to go to Gallipoli has only increased since that time. There is a ballot. I think it's legitimate to ask questions of Warren Snowden as to if he has chosen the best method to determine which Australians can be there. You can understand Australians who don't make the ballot still wanting to be there. You can understand tour operators wanting to ply their trade and meet the demand. So I think Warren Snowden does need to come out today to explain the arrangements that he has put in place and to see if there is any additional provision that can be made for other Australians. I mean, we've got to be mindful that we do have to work in with the Turkish authorities. Although we feel like it's Australian sovereign land, it is still part of Turkey. But I think it'd be very helpful if Warren Snowden came out today to clarify the arrangements.
All right, thanks very much for your time, Mitch Fifield. Appreciate you joining us from Melbourne. That's Mitch Fifield, the Shadow Disabilities Minister there.